All right, I want to welcome everyone to the National Black MBA Association Cincinnati chapter, Career Success During COVID event. So first, let me tell you a little bit about the Cincinnati chapter. We were founded in 1980, and we're really around five pillars. So all the programming we do is around five different pillars, from education, encouraging African American professionals to go back and get their education, professional development and career, which this program falls under, leadership, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle. And so since the pandemic, we've typically only been doing virtual events. Earlier this year, we had our skiing event out at Perfect North in February. But since then, we've just been doing virtual events because of the pandemic. Now, one thing I wanted to do with this program, because we have our upcoming national conference, is let people know a little bit about our national conference coming up because it's one of our biggest events. So from September 23rd to the 25th, we're having our national conference. Now, typically the National Black MBA National Conference draws between 9,000 and 18,000 people and typically has about 400 or so of the Fortune 500 represented because that is one of the top places to secure diverse talent. So this year, in light of the pandemic, they're going virtually. And along those lines, they're also having the virtual career fair. So that is why we're also giving away tickets to the virtual career fair, which is up to a $399 value. And toward the end, we'll let the participants know how to go about getting those free tickets for the career fair. So first, as I want to kick this off, I want to share a little bit about the national conference, and then I'll get into introducing our panelists and the rest of our program. So here's just a quick overview video that they made for this year's virtual conference.
Not getting any sound, Ben. Was there sound?
Experiences, including social media and engagement tools.
Are you getting sound now?
Will encourage maximum audience participation, and it all begins when you enter the
Yes.
lobby. Our 3D lobby provides the feel of the conference. Our daily video, Seize the Day, will welcome guests and highlight how to take advantage of this exciting annual event. You can also find our on-demand custom content options here, such as fitting in fitness and mentor conversations. Branding opportunities in this area include signage, logos, as well as live and on-demand program options and access to the help desk and lounge. The Prize Center lets you keep your audience engaged with product giveaways designed to drive traffic to your booth or sponsored program. Step into the auditorium to enjoy a full array of conference programming, including the empowerment stage, breakout sessions, meet the experts, and leadership studios. Our social media platforms offer additional ways to connect with our audience. Ask Me segments on Instagram provide direct access to speakers in the tech, finance, and consulting industries, while NBMBAA at Twitter offer entertainment content such as Family Movie Night and NBA Live. Depending on your sponsored event, your session can be branded to include in-event chats, Q&A, and custom polls. Access to speaker bios, presentations, and relevant links, as well as surveys, are also just a click away. Go back out to the lobby to access the exhibit halls for the career fair. A simple click on your branded booth provides easy access to all your company has to offer. Customize your exhibitor booth to include features such as welcome video, product and sales materials, which can be easily downloaded in the conference briefcase along with other conference and career fair items, one-on-one and group chat capabilities, ability to conduct video interviews, and based on the package you buy, company-specific badging to drive booth traffic, custom trivia gamification, a rotating ad in the lobby, a marquee message, a pop-up announcement message. As an alternative to various programming options, our branded lounge will offer attendees tailored gamification activities that reinforce your branding and product messaging. Product trivia and memory match use sponsor images and icons to provide an effective and engaging way to learn more about your product or presentation. Leaderboards will allow users to compare themselves with other players and create a fun, competitive buzz. The National Black MBA Association's 2020 Conference and Career Fair is history in the making. Your corporate partner development team is here to proactively work with and support you leading up to our September event. Let's work together to create your virtual branded experience today. Welcome to the National Black MBA.
Okay, I just wanted to share about our national conference as well too. And as I mentioned, we'll allow a couple lucky attendees to actually win career fair passes to that event. So we've also given away some full events to a couple of our members, some of our board members as well too, where they can attend all the different events as well as even the events going on in the evenings. So there's always a host of speakers. And we'll send out information to everyone after this about where they can get more information on this conference. But now I really want to jump into our career success during COVID, and I want to introduce our esteemed panelists. And I'm going to start from left to right with Julie George, who is a partner at Gilman Partners, Executive Search and Talent Advisory. Julie has been with Gilman for 25 years, and Gilman's retained executive search firm with service offerings, including interim service and a talent development program called Elevate. She leads the manufacturing, engineering, and supply chain practice. Next, I'm going to do a brief introduction of our other panelist, Toya Montgomery. Toya has a background in journalism and mass communications, where she even studied abroad for a brief period of time. She also founded a nonprofit organization called Relevate Marketing, and she's even taught marketing and sales courses as an adjunct professor at University of Cincinnati, University of Phoenix, and Mount St. Joseph University. She is the employer branding and vendor partnerships at the Kroger Company. TJ Bug, another one of our panelists. He's the Executive Vice President of Centennial, Talent Strategy and Executive Search. TJ has been a COO and CFO of both private and public manufacturing organizations. He has over 18 years as executive recruiter and vice president for Centennial, where their slogan is people solutions to business needs. And our fourth panelist, Tony Doherty, operations manager at Amazon. She has a background in mechanical engineering. She has spent time at Johnson & Johnson, Ford Motor Company, Millicron, and Procter & Gamble, and Kroger. And just recently, during this pandemic time, she has made a transition over to being operations manager at Amazon. So let's all virtually welcome our panelists. And now let's get it started, because we're going to have each of the panelists further introduce themselves and spend just a couple minutes giving us their top 3 tips for career success during COVID. And we're going to start with you, Julie.
Okay. Again, I'm Julie George. I'm a partner at Gilman Partners, and I've been there for 25 years, and I run the manufacturing operations and engineering practice. So I think the top 3 tips, I'd say, first of all, is stay connected. It's so easy to become unconnected, if you will, when you're at home. So the first would be to stay connected. The second would be to try to remain business as usual. Try to remain with a business day. And, if you're looking for work, it's still, a full-time job to look for work. And it's just hard to slip into, doing things in the middle of the day that you wouldn't do if you were sitting in an office. And the third thing is, honestly, give yourself some grace. I think, this is a hard time for everybody. And, you just have to, take a deep breath and give yourself and others some grace. So those would be my 3 tips.
Okay. Well, thank you for those tips, Julie. Now, next we'll go to Toya and ask her 3 top tips for career success during COVID.
My 3 tips would start with not being afraid to reinvent yourself. So during COVID, you're going to find that there are opportunities that may not be exactly in line with what you've been doing in the past, but some of your skill sets can still be leveraged to do something different. So don't be afraid to reinvent yourself, utilize your skills in a different way that can still be leveraged, and be able to showcase what value you bring regardless of what industry or what background you might have been in prior to. The other piece that I will say is that what I'm seeing at Kroger is that people are a little bit more flexible when it comes to salary. They start out being really hard and fast, not taking into consideration that we're going into a recession and that there may be other ways for you to get benefits that may not necessarily equate to an exact salary increase, but there may be opportunities to get more vacation time or to get more bonus on top of incentives. There may be a way to get stock options. So really think about the whole value of the package and not just the salary or the base that you're looking at. Because you may not be comparing apples to apples, but keep in mind that this world that we're in right now is not an apple kind of world. The world has changed quite a bit. So just be a little bit more flexible when it comes to identifying that value. And then the third piece I would say is not to forget to utilize your network, whether that be your family, your friends, your church group. I know a lot of people aren't going to church right now, but those people are still very readily available to help out and make connections and extend opportunities to get people back to work, because we all want to see the next person thrive. So just don't be afraid to reach out, because you never know where that next opportunity is going to come from.
Okay, thank you, Toya.
No problem.
Now, TJ, what are your 3 top tips for career success during COVID? TJ, we can't hear you.
Sorry. TJ Bug again. I'm sorry about that. I've had kind of a complex career, and in light that I have been in industry for half of my career, and I've been probably in executive recruiting the second half of my career. Worked for privately owned companies, international companies, and Fortune 500 companies. I would tell you that from my overall view, looking for jobs during this time now is really no different than when you're normally looking for jobs. It's just a few more tweaks on it, if you will. You're using the same tools, the same activities and all that, but you do have to be more consistent at it. So my tips are going to be along that line. If you're going out to make a LinkedIn request, make it personal. You know, don't just send out connections or whatever like that. Try to really find a reason that you're reaching out to them and want to connect. And the number of your LinkedIn connections has nothing to do with the power of your own personal relationships and networking. Make those meaningful things. Stay active in everything you do. Make sure you stay informed on what's going on in the business world, whether it be through the business courier or other things. Make yourself acutely aware of what's happening at the time it's happening, real time. And then make yourself a to-do list. For follow-up, make certain that your profile is up to date, and make sure that your resume is in agreement with your LinkedIn profile. You'd be surprised how many times that's not true. You want people to take a look at you. You want them to draw them in, along with your photo on your LinkedIn profile as well. The other thing is, and this is a normal situation, but make an Excel spreadsheet and keep track of every single person, whether it be from your church or whoever it might be, that gave you that lead. Get their name, their phone number, and email address, and when you talk to them, follow up on the referrals they give to you. And then once you connect with that person, go back and tell the person who gave to you, say thank you, so that you can keep everything fluid and have them continuing to think of you. I would say that on every email you send out, you'd be shocked how many emails that I get. It just says, here's my resume, Don, versus full name, address, not address, a full name, phone number, email address, and LinkedIn profile, so somebody can quickly take a look at you. And to echo something that Julie said earlier, celebrate your small victories. When you get a call back from someone, celebrate that. And then be patient with yourself and learn from your mistakes. Make time for yourself, keep yourself healthy, make time for your spouse and your kiddos, especially in this time. They're really nervous and scared too. So those are the kind of tips that I would give you what to do during this period of time. More to follow. Thank you.
Okay, hey, thank you, TJ. And now we'll go to Tony. What are your 3 top tips for career success during COVID?
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My 3 tips are along the lines of thinking about balancing your needs with the company's needs. So as you think about, if from my perspective, transitioning maybe to a new job or looking for a career place, I think the biggest thing to think about is where we are as a society and as a country, and where companies are coming from when they are making their decisions on hiring and on their needs and staffing needs. At this point in our existence in the world, they're very the businesses that are very essential, things are different than normal. So I think this is, for me, the top tip. The first tip would be to make sure you're very clean and clear on what you need, because the businesses are clear on what they need, and when they are putting information out there about what the roles are that exist and what they need as far as requirements for those roles, whether they be work from home or in my case, going into the office, you need to be very clear about what you can do with your family situation, with your own personal situation. And then make sure when you're interviewing it, those things connect. I think a lot of times, sometimes we will compromise on that a little bit because we think we have to, but I would challenge you to think about what would be your optimal situation when it comes to your employment, because that's what the employers are thinking about. And when you can get your optimal situation connected with what the employer is looking for, then that makes a really good fit. And then you don't have to stress over things after the fact. So for me, definitely getting clear on what your needs are, because right now, again, some people have, kids working from home, or kids that are home, or whatever your situation may be that's different than what it normally is. Think about that and what you are willing to do to still be able to take care of home and work. And then, of course, don't compromise on that. So that would be one. Number 2 would be not to make assumptions. It's again along those lines of what you think a company will go for, or a hiring boss or a manager, what you think or you assume they're asking for or looking for. I think it's important to ask questions, because it's not really business as usual right now in a lot of places. So ask questions. Don't make assumptions about what you think is customary. Just, be ready to get clarity on that. And the last one, kind of along the lines of what folks have said about connections, to make sure you're looking for ways to connect that, and you're putting a strategy behind and being very intentional about how you're going about doing that, because things are different. Some of the ways that we normally connect with people don't exist right now. So you have to be very intentional about the people you want to connect with. I like what TJ said about the spreadsheet, just being very intentional about, these are the people I need to stay connected with. So, and having a way to make sure I call or FaceTime or whatever the case may be to stay connected with them. The way you email, the way you interact, all those things leave a mark and are important to maintaining those relationships.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tony, and all our panelists, from staying connected, trying to remain business as usual as much as possible, not being afraid to reinvent yourself and utilizing your network, continue to be more focused, looking for that job and making sure that resume matches your LinkedIn profile, and making sure you're balancing your needs with what the company needs, because you're clear on what you need and you have a strategy behind your job search in your career. Now, one thing I wanted to get into, Tony, even more with you, if you could share a little bit more with the audience about your your personal journey, because you made a career change during this time frame. So what other things did you specifically do in order to get the dream job that you wanted during this time frame?
Yeah, I definitely made a change. I was a Kroger at the beginning of the year, and it was in actually again with I was working from home once everything changed, and I'm comfortable with that. But I was in a role and I was working and everything was fine. And I'm always keeping my, I guess, options open. As you can see, I've been with a couple of different companies and I've had some great experiences. So actually, Amazon reached out to me during this process, and I engaged with them. And I guess because I had a job, but I engaged with them from a place of I'm very clear on what I need as a employee, as a mom, as a wife. You know, I wanted to make sure if I was going to make a move, that it was going to be one that was going to be very beneficial for my family and for myself, as well as for the company. And so I know with what I was dealing with, it was a lot of conversation with a lot of different folks, a lot of different connections internally at Amazon to make sure I understood what I was getting into, because it's a new company, it was a new company as well as a new area. And in this case, none of the interviews were face-to-face. All of the interviews were virtual. Most of them were over the phone. Only the last round of interviews was like where you actually could see the person. So, I mean, the entire process was different than any interview process I've been through before. I've done phone interviews before, but not every interview, you know, every interaction you have with the folks. So that's really important, because it's really to think about how do you sound, how you project, what's your, you know, your positioning when you're interviewing. It just takes a lot more to engage and connect from a telephone or from a virtual setting. It's not impossible, but you have to think about those things when you're interacting. And then also for me, my perspective was making sure it was something that works for me. So I was working from home, but in the role that I moved to, it was a role that required me to go into the office. So I had to get very clear on what the protocol and the safety requirements were when it comes to, you know, keeping everyone safe. Amazon has some very strict rules and procedures that made me feel very comfortable about it. But, you know, it's so many pieces to it that I would say that's why one of my top tips was to make sure you're clear on what's important to you, because there are so many pieces to moving to a new job, and if that job is virtual versus in person in a place in a time like this. If you know what you need and what's your top, you know, priority, then you can match that up the best with them and communicate as much as possible. I think you can make it a very successful transition. I feel really good about the transition I've made, and I think it's possible to do it in a time like this. It just may take a little bit more effort and forethought on your part, so you're very intentional about what you're going after.
Okay, thank you. Now, next, I wanted to get into this question for Julie and TJ, because executive recruiters have always been, I feel, one of the best source for some of our members, since our members many times have advanced degrees. And I wanted Julie and TJ to comment on what are the best ways to work with executive recruiters. And since you went first last time, Julie, I'm gonna give you this one first, TJ.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, I'll say first of all, don't count on a recruiter to get you a job. Too many people want to say, you know, hey, it's your job to find you jobs. Well, actually, our job in a retained search firm, and Julie says as well as us, we're working for the client, and we're going to work with every candidate as much as we can and strongly represent them and build relationships with them. But I've found that still vast majority of jobs are actually gotten or secured through networking and referrals and all that, and doing your homework there. We certainly want to be part of that relationships that you have too as well. So that's critical. Find a recruiter you can trust and be trustworthy at the same time. This is something different. I mean, I guess I got to give you a quick story. Before I got into this, I didn't even like recruiters. I couldn't even find out where they added value to anybody's life. I'll be honest with you. But I've really learned this in a whole different way, and I've joined with a company, and I have a high regard for Baldwin with Julie as well, that we do it differently. And we do form relationships for a lifetime. And that's what's critically important here. So when you land somebody somewhere, contact your recruiter. Tell them you think where things are. You know, be honest with them to almost to a fault. It was mentioned earlier, and I don't know, Tony mentioned it, and or Toya did as well. But know what your compensation needs are. Be honest with your recruiter, so you don't wind up getting to that final thing, and then all of a sudden, well, I really want more money than I want something different. Lay it out and be honest with it from the beginning. And I would say that if you really try to, I'll go back to the point, really try to develop a relationship and be patient. If we don't get back to you day one with a call, we will get back with you, but there's a lot of irons in the fire. So I'll pause on that for right now. It's just different as a retained search firm than others. And Julie, I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, Julie.
Thanks, TJ. You know, TJ and I are always aligned when we do this because Centennial and Gilman Partners, you know, we're competitors, but we really work very similar, you know, have similar clients, etc. You know, so to that point, when you're working with a retained firm like Gilman or Centennial, you know, sometimes candidates are confused when I tell them to call Centennial also. And, you know, I'm not competing with TJ for the same job. If I'm working on a VP of engineering, TJ's not working on it. We may have competed to get the search, but once we get it, we're retained and we're not competing. So that would be a first thing is, you know, don't be shy about calling a couple different, you know, search firms. So that would be the big thing. And then the other, you know, to reiterate what TJ said, we are paid by our client companies. So, you know, we are paid. We used to have a receptionist that would tell people, we don't help you find a job. We don't help people find a job, which kind of is true, kind of not. But the reality of it is we are paid by a company to find X, Y, and Z. And you know, we're 98% of the time, we are most successful at finding people who've been there, done that. So understand if you call an executive search firm about a job that you think you can do, you really have to have, you really need to convince us that you think you can do it, because our clients are expecting us to bring people that have proven that they can do it or have at least enough in the toolbox that they can get there. So, you know, sometimes we'll have people call and they're totally different than what, and I always tell people, I'm not going to tell you, you can't change careers, you can't change paths, but it's hard to do that through an executive search firm. It's hard for us. Occasionally we do it, but it's hard for us to take somebody with this great skill set and put them in a different box. So
I want to just comment back to what Julie said, because it just echoed back. I got to tell you that we've got many people to send in resumes for jobs, and we know they're looking for jobs, and know their family situation is tough. We know all this is on there. But you know, I hope that they can trust us enough to know that we know exactly what the client's needing and wanting and desiring. And although you may be, as you said, a great tool set and fantastic in this particular one, you don't match the criteria for here. And I have to say, Julie, I'll let you comment back on this too as well, because I think it's important. I find clients being very discerning right now, very discerning, going through multiple interviews and double interviews. So I'll let you comment back, but it's different right now from an interview perspective.
yeah. You know, we do have a good client base, and I'm sure Centennial's the same way. That, you know, I have clients I've worked with for 22, 23 years, and sometimes I do, you know, talk to them about what we call a talent hire, right? And I'm sure TJ uses that same. So that talent hire is somebody who's ready to get to that place. Those, to TJ's point, there's lots of interviews to get there, but, you know, we occasionally get that done, but, you know, they're paying us fees to find people essentially, mostly that have been there, done that.
Okay. Well, next question, I also want to direct this one to Toya. in her role with Kroger, I kind of want to know what are some of the available opportunities at Kroger?
So we're looking for people across the board, but one of the really high demand positions right now are our e-commerce supervisors. We have them across the country because we are starting to see an uptick of customers that want to buy their groceries online as opposed to going into the store. So we have converted several of our stores to really increase the performance of what you get from a service standpoint when you order online. And then another big one, which is where Tony came from, is our sourcing and supply chain and logistics area. So we have a lot of opportunities in and around that, as well as I think just recently I noticed there was a couple of positions around kind of leadership on the manufacturing side, HR, manufacturing leaders. So all of our jobs are listed on jobs.kroger.com. There's a whole slew. We're in 36 states. We're hiring from March until now, we've hired over 100,000 people. So we're still in the hiring business. We still have plenty of people to feed, and we want to get your applications and get you through the process. So definitely go on jobs.kroger.com and apply if you see something that's of interest.
Excellent. All right. The next question I want to direct to everyone is, what advice would you provide someone who's looking to change their career path? So they may be in manufacturing, they may want to move to supply chain or HR or marketing or something else. So what advice would you give them? So let's start this one with Tony. Tony?
Okay, sorry about that. I just want to make sure I was unmuted. So I think one advice I would give is to look at the core competencies that are required in the role the area you want to move to. So for instance, if you're in manufacturing and you want to move into supply chain understand, or if it's an area or a type of role, understand what your current core competencies are and how those key individual qualifications relate to, or the individual skills relate to the qualifications of the roles you're looking for. So for instance, if you were a operations manager, but you want to move into maybe some type of project work, you got to think about what are the things that project managers do, and what types of work, what types of things have you done in your experience that would make you a good project manager. So I think it's more, and I can't say that I've done a huge flip from one area to the next, but I would think in the areas where I have moved into, so like the sourcing area when I was in manufacturing most of the time, a lot of the continuous improvement and problem solving and cost analysis, they trying to look at how to solve problems and create solutions. Those you have to look at ways to do that in the other role. So I think the best thing I could say is, just to sum up, that is to get an understanding of what's required to perform well in the other role, and see how your role and your experience may fit some of those qualifications.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Tony. Julie?
Yeah, I would just piggyback on what Tony said, and I would, to be able to find out what those competencies are, I would do your best to find somebody to shadow or to ask to interview, and whether that's via Zoom right now or if you could meet outside at Starbucks, and really trust your network, because it's hard to change disciplines, and if you really want to do it, you got to find some people who know your work ethic, know that you're reliable, et cetera, to be able to recommend you for roles outside of your specialty.
Okay. Toya?
I always tell people to create a bridge. So look at where you are and create a bridge from where you are to where you want to be. and look at, well, what are you missing? What are some areas that you're just not meeting the need? And what can you do in order to put some tools in that toolbox to meet that need that will help you get closer to the other side of that bridge? One thing I do want to mention, I forgot to mention in my last time I was talking, is that we're looking for developers, virtual developers across the country. So that's a huge one that I wanted to make sure that I touched on.
Okay.
Toya, I think that's really smart, that bridge. I think that's a great way to put it, that sometimes you can get additional responsibilities in your current role that will add to your toolbox. So that's really good advice.
Excellent. TJ.
Thank you. I was looking at this two different ways. Number one, changing your career path while you're working right now with someone, or trying to do it when you're in transition. And I think trying to do it in transition is going to be a lot more difficult, quite honestly, because to that point, if you're trying to get a job there, as Julie mentioned earlier, what makes you more qualified than the other 20 candidates that we're going to see, or the other 100 candidates we're going to see? So that's really challenging to do it midstream. The way you're going to do it, if you are going to do it, is being able to showcase your skills, your abilities, and your talents, but also have a champion. Have somebody who's going to walk your resume and put it at the top of the file somewhere within the company to help you get there. Changing within a company, I think I can give you a little incident of what happened with me early on in my career. I'm a finance major by background, CFO, COO. I wanted to get in manufacturing. I wanted to be a supervisor. So I started volunteering to work those shifts nobody wanted to work, third shift on a Saturday night, to prove to people I could do what necessary to be done. And I think if people can do that within their careers, then they can get other people to take a look at them, taking the opportunity to shift their careers, because it's important that people see you in that environment. Thank you.
TJ, I think that's a great point. One thing I would piggyback on that is to not be afraid to take some of those contract roles or temporary to really prove yourself. Maybe it's a 3-month or a 6-month. Yeah. If you don't have, the background, but you have the skill set, then you might be positioned in a perfect, opportunity to take it on and then get into a full-time permanent role.
Right.
And oftentimes they will, a contract role will turn into a full-time role. And I've had it happen to myself, and I've had to see this happen to a lot of other people.
Yeah. The other option is, volunteering with a nonprofit or something that, you're volunteering. So they're a little more flexible on what you're going to do. So to gain experience.
Good point. Very good point. So thank you.
Excellent. Yes, I've known a number of people that have volunteered on nonprofits to gain skill sets, marketing, finance, etc. That's always helped them move to a role that they're trying to get elsewhere. All right.
Back to an earlier point too. And I forgot who made that. I think it was Toya's again. What are your compensation requirements? Be willing to step down and where you are, and being open about that. If you're wanting to shift your career, because you may have to take one step back to take two forward in your desired career path.
Okay. Now, the next question I want to ask the group, but I also want to let the audience know that you can put some of your questions in the chat box that we may ask some of the panelists as well too. But the next question to the panelists are, what are some of the alternate networking platforms that you would recommend, since face-to-face networking is really limited during this pandemic? And we'll start with you, Julie.
I put this out to my firm because I didn't have any advice, but a couple of things that some of them said were, I guess Microsoft Teams really allows you to do breakout rooms and, set up different chats. And that was, a couple of them talked about that. And then there's a lot of virtual networking events that are happening. So, but I don't have any really great advice. Hopefully the rest of the panelists do.
Okay, Toya?
I would suggest some of those Facebook groups. I know a lot of times people don't look at Facebook for career advice and that type of thing, But there are some groups on there that are a little bit more, I would say, progressive. Same thing with meetups, where you're going to get a like-minded group, and they're starting to do meetups that are virtual because, you know, you can't necessarily be out meeting up with strangers now, but you will have an opportunity to meet up with like-minded individuals that have similar interests and might be able to assist you with a networking opportunity.
Okay. TJ?
Yeah, I had a couple of things here. I think, again, focus on your relationships, but read, be prepared, target companies, industries, send news articles to prospective employers, find a way to connect with people. It's all about this. Cincinnati is the strangest town in the whole wide world anyhow. It is a village disguised as a city. And I learned that because I came from another area of the country, and but I married a West Side Catholic girl, so I was in right away. So that's no problem there. But find ways to connect. What makes you different to connect? I also try to get on LinkedIn and say happy birthday to people as they come up on my network group. I also take them when they get a promotion. I say, hey, congratulations on that promotion. It takes, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes a day to do that, but it's important. Same thing for Facebook. You want to stay connected. You want to be out there in front of people all the time and be authentic. And what's happening if you're not taking these business courier emails in the morning, in the afternoon, and keeping up with that? Tell you what you were mentioning with Kroger. This is all over the news with business courier all the time. These changes that are happening and your culture of how you're going to deal with customers and things like that out there. It's important, and find ways to connect. So.
Okay. Well, thank you much. Now, the next question I want to ask you guys are, what are you guys hearing from employers about remote work? So how are employers really feeling about remote work? And we'll start with you, Toya.
Well, Kroger has told us to get comfortable because, you know, we have around a little under 500,000 employees. And so there's a lot of people moving around, and when it comes to the corporate office, they just want to make sure that people are safe. So if you can get your job done virtually, that's the focus for us. I don't know what other employers are doing, but for us, the safety is the utmost importance.
Okay, so TJ, what have you been hearing about from some of your clients?
A mixed bag. Some think they're great with it. A whole new way of conducting business. People are getting used to do that. And a lot of people think it's going to be very tough to transition back into the office again. And so you're going to have a lot of office space being let out there. This creates a lot of new opportunities for those wanting to work for a company that is not in Cincinnati. They don't want to come to Cincinnati. They're in Los Angeles. Well, in a remote situation, you could do that. So I think that's another opportunity that you could do. The companies are looking at a lot differently there. I think the other part of the mixed bag, it's very hard to manage the productivity for your less engaged people, that are ones that are easily distracted. They stay engaged while they're working from home. And it's just a little bit more difficult for somebody who wants to be engaged, that misses that work culture that they love being involved in every day.
Okay. Tony?
Well, for me, what I've seen from when I was with Kroger, it was definitely it was, you know, there's two parts. There's the corporate folks, and then there's the folks in the stores. And so from a corporate perspective, it was working from home and getting comfortable with that, but having a lot of virtual calls and a lot of virtual meetings and that type of thing. So just getting used to that and being able to be effective, finding ways to have like happy hours and that type of thing with your team for team building, because a lot of people do miss that social interaction and the team building and being able to, you know, have your coworker right next to you to talk to them about things. It's just, you know, have to take an extra effort to reach out to them now when they're not right in the vicinity. Then from another, you know, from an Amazon perspective, you know, it's still different, even though, in the area I'm in, the fulfillment center, and I work, in person, it's still very different because you still have to have your mask on. And so I don't know if anybody's ever tried to start a new job and train and not really hear people very clearly and see what they're saying, or, not really understand. It just takes a whole nother layer away from, your startup process and communications. And so this is very different. So you have to just ask a lot of questions, but I'm seeing that. And then for Amazon, they have several corporate offices across the country where a lot of those corporate offices are working from home. So it just depends on what part of the environment you're in, or what part of the office operation you're part of, that we are seeing, where people are working from home or, working in the office. But even if you're in the office or in a facility, things are still very different than they used to be.
Understandable. And Julie?
I don't have a whole lot more to add. Most of my clients are manufacturing, so most of them are back. And I think the upper management feels like they need to be there. Also, if they're expecting their operators to be on the floor. So most of my clients, no matter if they're, on the shop floor every day or they're in the offices, are working in-house. I think people are seeing a culture shift, and it's not great. I think, the upper management's having a lot of conversations about how can we keep our culture strong. So I think that is a work in progress. And I, agree with TJ that there's probably gonna be a lot of commercial real estate with for sale signs or for lease signs somewhat soon, because I think people are being successful at working from home. So that's it.
Okay, thank you much. Now I want to ask, since we're giving away some free tickets to the National Black MBA Career Fair, I want to know, what are some of your interviewing tips that you would recommend when attending a virtual career fair? And so I want to start with TJ.
Virtual career fair. Okay.
Exactly.
I guess the old adage is still true. Dress for success. What is your background and your Zoom going to be behind it? A lot of don'ts. Don't be eating. Don't be chewing gum. I mean, these are things you wouldn't do in a normal interview. You surely don't want to do it on a Zoom, because everything is much more zoomed in and focused on you. Try to get in a place where you're not going to be disturbed or distracted or whatever like that. Focus on the screen. Keep the eye contact even when you're in a virtual situation like this. Mute yourself when you're not talking, so you're not disturbing other people or other sounds. This is one of my key factors that I have, though. Last is that be prepared. Know the company. Know the interviewers as much as possible. Find ways to connect with them any way you can. I've got sitting here, I printed out each one of your LinkedIn profiles and read over your information before that, so I can be prepared in case there's anything to connect. So that's just my tips that I can give you for virtual.
Excellent. Tony, since you went through a variety of virtual interviews, what are some of your interviewing tips?
I think I agree with a lot of what TJ said. You do want to be as prepared as possible and focus. But the other thing is to just try to figure out other ways to engage, to be careful about what your background looks like, and if you have room to not be interrupted. The other thing I would say is to make sure you check like your computer connection and that type of thing. And some companies actually will have a practice round for you to work with someone to make sure that's set up correctly. So, I think it's all about, making sure you're putting your best foot forward, no matter which way you're going to do it, if it's over the phone. But I would say be conscious of your inflection. So a lot of times they'll say you can hear a smile. So, try to smile when you're talking if you can, and just be really, and try to be as genuine as you can.
Okay. Julie?
Just piggybacking on, if you do phone interviews, even before this was all happening, I always gave the advice of stand up and look at yourself in the mirror during a phone interview, because you can watch your own facial expressions, and the smile comes out, and sometimes you don't know it. So standing up obviously helps you talk more firmly. And then the other thing with the Zoom interviews, don't forget about sharing your screen. Oftentimes you might take, if you're in a person-to-person interview, take a spreadsheet or take something to show, to help the interview. Understand how to share your screen and share your screen, because not many people are doing that, and it could set you apart.
Okay, Toya.
So I'm a firm believer in the STAR method. So situation, task, action, result. Because a lot of times people will tell you what they did, but they don't tell you what the result of what they did was for the company and how it impacted the business. So I always tell people to, when you are preparing your answers, think about the STAR method. Don't just tell me what you did, tell me what the result of it was. Another piece that was a big pet peeve when I was an executive recruiter is animals. Put your dog away. I don't want to hear your dog. I don't care about your cat. I want you to tell me about your experience. I want to make sure that you have thought about a plan for how you're going to make sure that we can be together for this 15 minutes to go to this phone screen. You'll be able to give me your undivided attention to answer the questions. So avoid any distractions. If you have a doorbell, any of those types of things, go into a place in your house that's going to be quiet, because you're only going to get one chance to make that first impression, and you don't want a doorbell or a dog to ruin it for you.
Okay. Well, thank you much. Now, this will be the last question before I'll just have each of you guys give some final thoughts. The last question I want to ask you is, what things would you recommend new hires do differently when accepting a remote role? So first, I'll just start with, I'll start with you, Tony.
I think one thing I would recommend that a new hire do differently when we're accepting a remote role would be to spend some time finding out who your key partners are or peers are within the organization you're working with, and try to spend some time having a one-on-one to talk to them, because it's going to be hard to be able to leverage, just being in the same place and starting up new in your virtual. It's kind of hard to see that or see folks and know who you're talking to and who the players are. But when you meet with them one-on-one, it'll be easier to drive home, like, okay, this is, what the person's role is and what they do and how I'm going to interact with them. So I think just spending a little bit of extra time having a more intentional join up with your peers and the co-workers, the people that you'll be working closely with, I think that'll go a long way, so that you'll know who to contact and, just how to get work done. I think another thing is to just keep, try to learn how people are getting work done there too. Like, is it very heavily, focused on email? Is it very heavily focused on conversation? Do folks use, chat a lot? One thing I learned, for example, at Amazon, is,
I'm sorry, I think, Tony?
I think we lost her.
Okay, well, Julie, that same question what would you recommend new hires do differently when accepting a new role?
Similar to what Tony was saying, we actually hired a new employee. And she's doing one-on-ones with each of us, just really asking some really good questions on, if we were all in the office, what would I be seeing? What kind of movement? You're just kind of trying to set it up in her eyes. So, I think at this time, that's really the only thing you can do, and she's doing a nice job of it. So,
excellent. Toya?
I would say try to share some fun facts. I know when I started at Kroger, one thing that I really appreciated about the experience was they had a sheet when I first came in, and it was like, what's your favorite color? What do you like to do? What's your favorite candy? And they gave me, when I first came, like a thing of flowers and a bag of candy, which for me it was Snickers. And so that's one little thing that you can do to get to know the person, even though you're not going to be physically in their presence, just to allow them to get to know you a little bit better about what you like to do, or what your color, or what your flower, just any little thing like that, that just lets you get a glimpse into who the person is.
Okay, I'll even share along those lines of one-on-ones. At P&G, we would do a series of join-ups, and each one of those join-ups, we do a one-pager. So we each trade our one-pager, and that would just facilitate that conversation with our one-on-one. Now, the last thing I want to do as we wrap this up, I just want to go along each of the panelists, and for each of you guys give any kind of final thoughts. And we'll start where we began with Julie.
I guess my only final thought is just to, you know, I really don't, now that we're coming out of this, I mean, we're not totally out of it, but it does feel different than it felt in April and May, that, you know, if you're looking for work and you got discouraged, kind of reset, because the employment marketplace has reset. So that would be my only last comment.
Okay, Toya.
Yeah, I would piggyback off of what Julie said, like not to get discouraged. Don't be afraid to, like I said, do some contract work, get in and do something that you may not do ordinarily, just to kind of keep busy, because I think it's easy to get discouraged when you don't get a yes. But if you get a yes on something that may not necessarily be your first choice, but it still allows you to utilize your skill set, it's still a win. And it gives you something to do until you find that dream job or what it is that you really want to do.
Okay, TJ, final thoughts?
One of my favorite quotes is that people will never remember what you said. They'll never remember what you said. They'll always remember how you made them feel. And that's going to be critically important, whether you get the job, whether you don't get the job, or whatever. Keep multiple opportunities out in front of you. It may be in different stages. You may be at a final interview with one and just starting out with another. Don't quit until you start. And stay, because I've seen too many people run a job all the way down to the final day, and then they came in second, a strong second, but now they're starting all over again. The other thing is that, and I'm going to go back to the compensation, especially in today's world, have a wider spectrum right now for what your compensation needs, requirements might be. Because even if you say, I want to be at 150, but a $100,000 job comes in there as an example, and you say, that's not for me, that may turn out to be 150 by the time you get the final deal together or whatever, and you'll wish you had. Because this time is elusive here. The German word is Augenblick. In the blink of an eye, here goes 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So stay focused, stay engaged, and keep the smile. And make people, even when they don't give you that job, they're going to make sure they give a chance to give you the next job because of how you made them feel. So that's it for me.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank, I'm sorry, Tony, are you back? Any final thoughts? I have her mic unmuted, but oh well, I guess she's not back. But I want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Toya. Thank you, TJ. And thank you, Tony, for sharing with our members how to have career success during COVID. And now for...
Tony says to make sure your devices are charged.
I saw that in the chat room. The one last thing for that I'm going to give away, we're giving away 3 passes to the National Black MBA Virtual Conference Career Fair, which is up to a $399 value. And the way we're going to do this is, I've put our email address in the chat room, info@cinciblackmba.com. And the first 3 that actually email us, the answer, they actually email us the answer to our trivia question. And our trivia question is very simple. It's, what year was the National Black MBA founded? Not the Cincinnati chapter, but national. So just email us with that answer at the info@cinciblackmba.com, and we'll be sure to send you the passcodes in order to get into free for the Career Fair Conference. And once again, thank you all for being a part of our event, Career Success During COVID.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for the opportunity to do so.
Mhm.
Hey, thank you.
God bless.
Good to see you all.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.